Hello all, I'm Nice Tale here. How are you all doing today? And I'm bringing you a knife summary of a knife I've done a review on. I will link that down below. It was a little bit of a funky review. There was a bit of an interruption from something, which you will see in the thumbnail for that video, should you see it. This is the Merriken Knives Ultimatum production made by Riot. There is a mini version, but I consider getting one, but it's smaller, and I kind of like the size this is, and I already have one, so didn't end up materializing. This, as you can see, is a very dramatic knife, as is the custom it is based off of. The Ultimatum is an American-made custom by Merriken Knives. That just that tickles me in all the right ways. So, what are we looking at here for the summary? We're looking at M390 blade with two compounds, like two different angles for satins. Actually, three different angles for satins. Maybe a hand satin there, belt satin there, belt satin there. I don't know. Stonewashed fuller, or maybe that's blasted? I'm not sure. Looks like blasted or just a really heavy gray stonewash on the handle. Excellently done carbon fiber inlays, but you can expect that from Riot. I really like this carbon fiber. It's like that it's either, I don't know if it's side cut, but it's that Black Dunes carbon fiber that just has the big layers in it. It looks good either way. Yes, it does. The blade shape here is a clip point compound ground tanto with a slight recurve. Recurve tanto, whatever you want to call it. And as weird as it looks, this knife is much more functional than you'd think. Like, it not only traps material well, the secondary tip sticks out low enough that it's very usable for those draw cuts. The front tip is hard to get to, but the second one provides that. You have a lot of control up here with a much thicker tip. It gets quite thick at the tip. And yeah, it's surprisingly more functional than you'd think. It also looks pretty cool. And I'm not sure which they were going for. Hopefully both. Thumb stud and, in this case, front flipper actuation. That's the word I was looking for. And even though this isn't the super fine jimping, it really has the same kind of good grip as some of that EDM wire jimping. Blah, blah, blah. I can't talk today. I'm really having trouble. Wire EDM jimping. And it sticks up pretty proud, and it's quite easy to do, no matter how you do it. Like, I don't think this front flipper is going to cause most people a problem, but if it does, you have, of course, the flick off of the fuller and the thumb studs that you can also flick off of pretty darn easily. So actuation's not a problem here. Great action, smooth, centered, no play. Merriken Knives logo is right there. I never love when they put the logos on the bevels, but there wasn't a whole lot of room to put it up here. I wouldn't mind it just sitting right here personally. Just laser that right in there. That would have looked nice. The spine has jimping right here that is actually functional, weirdly enough. It's sitting a little low, so you kind of have to push into it, but it does provide some traction. This provides traction, but it's also not something you want to push into because it's super aggressive. I mean, it's not as bad as you might think just sitting on it. It really isn't. But I wouldn't move my fingers like this because, while it's not sharp, and it's done and executed well enough that I'm fine here, yeah, that could still hurt you. If you really pushed into that thing, that could still hurt you. But right here, you're very much so fine. There is a forward choil on this thing that, as you just saw, can actually be used, but it is a little bit tight. So it's more of a, maybe like a one knuckle. I can actually get both in there. So it's definitely usable. And you are a bit close to the edge, so if you start sharpening this thing, could become an issue. As the edge goes up, your finger's going to be more likely to go right into it. This grind back here is hollow ground. It is flat ground up here, as I said, much thicker. The plunge is very hard to tell on this knife. I think it actually does hit the edge. It's just a little tricky to tell exactly where you're at. Like it looks like it might be here. That it's not just going up the blade and getting naturally a little thicker. Either way, it's somewhere right around here. It's a little closer to the edge than I would like. I'd love to just see it pulled back and make a defined plunge grind back here. Handles are contoured. And I think this is more is that? No, that's just it's not carbon fiber. I think that's just a titanium pivot collar. Yeah. There's no milling on the inside. Despite that, this is not a heavy knife. It's got a big clip that looks kind of weird, but it's more functional than you'd think, and it's super comfortable. It just works in the hand. It feels like it's kind of part of the knife. It's a little bit raised, but it's fine. Lock bar access, even though, again, it doesn't really look great, is pretty easy. You have to come just a slight bit from the diagonal, but it's not a problem. And honestly, it might be a safety measure, because if you're coming from the diagonal here, if you're coming from the side here, you might be a little bit less to get that rear edge termination in your hand. But you can also do it like this and sort of catch this. As you can see, there's a little bit of a nub right there. You can sort of catch that and eliminate any potential unpleasantries that you could face by letting this thing drop into your nail or your finger. So, overall, it's very deceptive, this knife. It is. It's better than you'd think. The lock bar access seems like it's not great. It's better than you'd think. The shape of the blade seems a little bit kind of not useful. It's surprisingly useful. So it really does blend the very intense form with a lot more function than you'd think, which is a nice thing to see. Always nice to see. Now, there is one complaint that I have, and that is the stop pin behind the edge. However, the stop pin does hit way back here, which is pretty darn far away from the edge. In fact, it hits at full blade stock thickness. This is where the plunge grind has completely stopped, and we're basically at full blade stock thickness, which means you'd probably be cutting in any choil in front of that anyway. So as long as you're careful not to like take this entire mass out, which would be pretty difficult, you're not going to have a problem. So I'm not going to say it's an actual issue. I just never like seeing stop pins there in general, just because what it usually entails, right? Causing issues. Overall, this is a really fun and interesting knife. It's a premium knife. They're not available. There's been one run, I think, of the full-size ones, and maybe 2 runs of the small ones, or they were like spaced out on when they were dropped, because I feel like I saw them like twice. Maybe I'm misremembering. Who knows? Probably. Yeah. Overall, the Ultimatum is a really cool. It might be zirconium, actually. Just completely distracted side note thing, and T8 all around, which is nice. This is a fun knife. It's a premium knife. It's a knife that's definitely doing more than just being a knife, and yet it manages to be a pretty good knife. So I'm happy with that. I think that's everything I really want to talk about in the summary here. So if you want to see more specs, more coherence, because I'm not very coherent today apparently, Well, actually, I wasn't super coherent for the... Maybe it's just this knife. I wasn't super coherent for the review, full review either, but that was a dog issue. But yeah, good detent, good knife. I like it. Ultimatum. I'm going to put this thing away and probably never talk about it again because I keep having issues. If you didn't find this completely insane, like, comment, subscribe, etc., etc. Standard boilerplate stuff, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching.